Welcome everyone. We are starting the first video in a series on how to flip a house, and based on a lot of requests from the cult and many others, we're going to do this kind of out of sequence a little bit, but today's video is actually going to be about how to determine construction costs for a project. And today I'm going to kind of run through some stuff based on my experiences flipping homes for many years and my perspective as a builder and a general contractor as opposed to an investor, and walk you through really the best way to do a quick rough estimate to determine construction costs to get you to a point where you can say yay or nay to an investment property, albeit for a flip or a buy and hold type scenario where it's a rental or some other type of deal, or even in a position where you're going to wholesale it to just basically flip the paper, so to speak, to another investor. You can give them as an incentive if they take that paper and you're flipping that house without doing anything to it, you're doing a wholesale, you can take that information on construction costs and hand it over to them. And I've done that a couple times too and said, here's what it's going to cost for the construction. You're buying it for X, and then obviously this guy knows what it's going to be selling for Y. That kind of helps them leverage the opportunity of yes or no if you're going to try and wholesale to somebody else. Long-winded explanation, but that's kind of where we're going today with this. This is the hardest part, especially for people that aren't in my industry, investors in particular. How the heck do you determine construction costs? So we're going to go through it today. I'm going to explain exactly the simplest ways to break things down before you actually sit down in front of a spreadsheet and break down every single number. And I'm going to walk you through how to get from a rough estimate into a budgeted spreadsheet to basically crunch those numbers, stay on budget, and be successful in your flip or your long-term hold. So we're going to talk about a lot of things on this board you can see behind me, but the first thing I need you guys to do, like and subscribe to the video. Appreciate all of the support to this point. Make sure you guys do that. Leave your comments below. If I missed something in this video, hopefully I don't in this section of it. Please let me know if you got anything else you want me to cover. You can email me as well, and I can cover that. The biggest points I want to make today are really just so you understand what we're going to cover. I'm not going to break down how to do construction budget for a general contractor. So, for example, this is not going to cover how to put together an actual estimate for a client if I was to do work for somebody else. This is strictly for how to get a rough budget put together for a flip or a long-term hold for an investor. I think, and I've found over the years, the best way to go about this is to start with understanding a price per square foot to build and remodel in your area, so in your zip code, right? So you need to figure out what your price per square foot based on your zip code is going to be. And there's a million ways to go ahead and find that. You can just Google it. You're going to come up with 30,000 pages of information on what that is. The best keys that I've found and the best links to go to grab those numbers, because they do change very rapidly. Homeguide.com, Realtor.com will have those numbers, and they're pretty solid numbers. I mean, you're not going to get a down to the penny idea of every single project. Obviously everything is going to be different, but this gives you an idea. And the reason you want to have this idea is because as you're flipping a home, you've got to determine what you're going to sell the house for at the end. And that's a price that I'm not going to put in air quotes fixed price, because on the other end there's a max amount of money you can sell that property for based on a comparable. And a comparable analysis is something we can talk about some other time. That would be for a different video. But the key here is to understand what your price per square foot is based on information you've gathered, and then you want to back it into your construction budget, okay? So once you have your price per square foot determined, and like I said, these are the best sources I've found on the internet. There's other places to go. If you've got a kind of a handle on your area, you might even have some information. You can even go talk to builders in the area. I mean, you can literally roll up on a job site sometimes, and if there's someone there that's in charge, GC, PM, whoever it is, they might even divulge that information to you. Kind of depends on how nice you are to them too. But I'm happy to do that. People that ask me, so it's not a big deal. It's not a secret. You can obviously go find that. So, find price per square foot. Okay. Next key for any flip is determine the ARV. ARV is the key, as I've written here. What is an ARV? ARV is, let's see if I can get my marker to work. We're going to go with purple, because purple seems to show up the best on this board for the camera. So ARV, I'm going to write it right here. After, let's do it legibly, Shane. After repair value, okay? After repair value is what ARV stands for. The ARV is the price you're going to sell the house for after you've put all of the projects together and you've done the remodel, you've done the renovation on the home. So after it's repaired, this is going to be the value. This value is determined by comparable sales in the neighborhood, and those are sales that are not just listings. Be careful with that, but you do want to have those that are on the market currently being listed actively for sale, but you also need the properties that have sold. And I would, this market's gonna be tough, but I usually go 3 to 4 months back to determine what's sold in that neighborhood. And you want to have it comparable. That's why they call it comparable market analysis. You want to have it comparable to the home that you're going to buy and renovate. So if it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 square feet, no basement, you need to go find comparable homes that have sold and that are currently listed on the market that are 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,500 square feet approximately, without a basement. And if it's a ranch, keep it as a ranch. Don't go 2-story to ranch. Those aren't comparables. And if there's only 4 in the neighborhood, then you might have to go further back to determine a better value. But you need to have a pretty good average going to determine this ARV. And I'm going to, throw out a number. Usually I like to have 6 to 7 between the actives and the solds for a neighborhood to determine a good average to figure out if my ARV is strong enough to be right there. Again, this video is going to be really focused on how to determine construction costs. I'm going to do a separate video on basically flipping a house 101, shall we say, where it's going to really cover how to get that ARV, how to do a comparable market analysis, and so forth. So just assuming we already know this, we've got our price per square foot based on our zip code, okay? The other key thing you want to have before we get into anything else is I like to determine what I called an initial spread. And the initial spread, as I've put it together, was basically you go and you find a house and you obviously it's listed at whatever price. So let's just say the house is currently listed at $200,000. It's in need of repairs. It's a possible flip, okay? The ARV I've determined for this neighborhood, for these houses that I'm looking at, is $400,000, okay? So $400K here, all right? So house is currently listed at $200,000, it needs work. The ARV for the neighborhood, based on what I'm looking at, is $400,000. I have an initial spread then of $200,000, okay? That basically determines very, very simply and quickly for me, before I even waste my time going to look at houses, what I'm working with here. If I buy it for 2, sell it for 4, my initial spread is $200K. That is not my profit, okay? This is profit, overhead, construction costs, hard and soft costs, everything's in this number. When I was doing it, and when I go out and look for possible flipping opportunities, I want an initial spread minimum of $100K, all right? No matter what the house, I want a minimum $100K, or I'm not going to go look at it. And that's going to help me kind of get into my construction cost analysis quickly before I even buy the house. I want to know what my rough budget's going to be. I need to know what my spread's going to look at. If it's less than $100K, it's rare that I'll even take a look at it, because I know, based on my construction experience, based on the budget for any flip and my flipping experience, if it's anything less than that, I'm going to be upside down pretty quick. That's not going to work for me, okay? So, that being said, I get into the next stage to get to my construction costs, and that's what's called the law of 1/3. Okay, so law of 1/3, let's get into it. This formula is going to actually help you get pretty consistent rough estimate numbers for your entire construction budget that you can use over and over again before you really start breaking down a project line item by line item and start getting actual estimates from your subs and trades. This number is going to help you kind of compete for that labor and material number, but it's also going to help you understand fairly consistently if a project's a green light or red light as terms of do you buy and flip or buy and hold, whatever you're trying to do, or is it a no-go and this number's not going to work. So we're going to break this down real quick. It may be a little confusing at first. Let it come all the way around. Once we're at the end, it's going to make a lot of sense. You'll get it, and the more you do it, obviously, just like anything else, the more it makes sense. So ARV, yes, we know you are the key. We'll discuss more of that later. That is for another video. We are going to get into law of 1/3. All right. First thing to know about law of 1/3 for all you math whizzes out there. The 1/3 really doesn't have to do with a third of anything. It's actually basically 3 different main categories I like to break down to help me get to a full construction budget rough estimate. Those 3 items are going to be materials. And materials are going to be broken down into 2 categories. We're going to have the sexies and the non-sexy. Okay? This is going to help you, with experience lacking, let's say, get to a number that will derive your labor numbers as well. So we have materials in the non-sexy and sexy. The third item, the third category, is going to be labor. We got to have people put this stuff in and build it for us, right? So that's what the third is referring to. It's materials, 2 different categories, and labor. It's rare that it actually breaks down to 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. It can get fairly close. You know, this is going to be the heavier portion compared to the rest of your budget. So, you know, don't sit there and think this is going to be 66% of the budget. This is going to be 33. This is going to be 33. It just doesn't work that way. Or 33 and 66. Sorry. See, I'm not a math whiz. Anyway, it's just basically 3 categories. That's what the law of 1/3 is. Sometimes this ends up being around 65 to 70% of your budget. That's kind of where to think about it. But as far as this goes, think about it as 3 categories, not a third of it, okay? So the trick here is to get one of these 2 numbers roughly put together. This will help you get the other number for the material category, and then we can actually, with a formula, figure out labor. And here's how we're going to do it. Sexy materials, I'll break this down real quick. That's all the fun stuff. That's tile, countertops, cabinets, flooring, cool lighting, and different kinds of hardware. That's all the fun stuff I like to think of. Your non-sexy materials are all your building materials, your lumber, your thin set, your drywall, tape, screws, nails, all that stuff that no one wants to think about that goes in behind the wall mostly. This is the one, as a novice investor or someone that's getting into the construction industry itself, this is the one that's going to be hard to derive because you don't have those costs, and without having vendors and guys out there that can actually deliver this stuff to you, and you haven't built a bunch of stuff, it's really going to be hard to figure this number out. This one you can do research on, talk to vendors, go to Home Depot and everywhere else to get this number, and you can do a lot of this basically online, and that's basically figuring out what you're going to do in the project and then put together, really you're just running off square foot numbers. So here's how I'm going to explain that. This is the number you can actually research without knowing anything about construction. So for the simple breakdown of this whole formula, we're going to do it this way. We've got our price per square foot based on our zip code because we've gone to these websites, we've researched a little bit, we've figured out in this area of wherever you're going to do your project, we've got a price per square foot. For simple numbers, we're going to say we're at $120 a square foot, okay, to build a remodel. This little funky square with the line through it is just a really lazy way of writing square foot for architects and builders. Just keep that in mind. If you ever see that, that means square foot. So let's just say this number came back to us at $120 a square foot. That's a dream number here in Colorado. I would love to be at $120 a foot to build. That's not even in the realm of possibilities right now. But that's why I'm working on alternative construction ideas and research, and hopefully sooner than later we're going to get that prototype going, and I can feel, based on that, where we're going to go. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. So we'll just say that's 120 square foot to build here. Assuming we're not going to gut the entire project on this particular example, we're going to do 1,000 square feet of the 1,500 square foot home. So we're going to do the kitchen, we're going to do the bathrooms, and we're going to finish the basement in this project. So 1,000 square feet of work. Okay, simple numbers. That means we're going to be around $120,000 of construction budget. That's labor and material, all in. Okay, that's the really rough start to say if that's where we're going to be at. We can kind of work that through our initial spread as we discussed and say, yes, this is actually something I can now continue to put numbers to. All right, so for 120 square foot, really ballparked. Now I understand 1,000 square feet of this is going to be renovated. I'm going to do the kitchen, the bathrooms, and the basement is going to be finished. I'm going to run through all the sexy materials that I can put together. Tile, cabinets, and that's just calling around. That's just getting online. You're figuring out kind of your layout. You're going to have a basic plan at this point, and you can ballpark these numbers, all right? So for simple argument purposes, let's say that number came to around $17,500, okay? That's all of your awesome materials, the fun stuff. The easy way to flip this to get the other half of your material category is just to double this number, all right? So it's 17,500 times 2, we're going to be 35,000 in material cost, okay? Now I have a rough idea of material cost. I can take this number to get my labor roughly and kind of know where I'm sitting for this project. And that's by this formula. So basically what we do is to get our labor, our formula is materials times 2, okay? And then we're going to add 15%. That's going to get us our labor, okay? So here, I'll write this out. I told you it's going to be weird at first. It'll make sense here in a minute. So 35,000 times 2, okay? So we'll go 35 times 2. That's 70,000. All right? Now, hopefully I don't need a calculator for this because we're going to get all funky here in a second. So 70,000. Now I need to add 15% to this 70,000 number, and that will give me my estimated labor cost. So 15% of that, we're going to go 70 times 1.15, okay? That is, stand by, 80,500, I think. Okay? That's what that should be. I'm going to double check myself so I don't have to look like a fool. 70 times 1.15. Yep, 80,500. That was lucky. So 80,500 is now my labor. This equals my labor cost, okay? So I have a $35,000 number for materials, and I have an $80,500 number for labor. We want to add these two together to get our total construction. So we go materials at 35 plus 80,500 for labor, okay? And that gives us 115,500, right? Okay, that's our total construction. Okay? Total construction budget is 115,500 estimated based on all I had to do was put together a rough number for all my sexy materials, okay? And that, again, that's just research and calling around. There's some legwork involved with this, but if you can get this number dialed in on some level and you double this number, so 17,500 times 2 will give you a total material cost, and then we go through our formula to find our labor. So again, once we get this number, you take your total materials times 2, so 35,000 in this case times 2, that gives you $70,000 well, 70,000, and then the number is going to be added to 15% to give you your total labor. Hopefully that makes sense and I explained it right. So 70,000 times 1.15 is how you do 15% more on top of that. That's how you find 15% of 70, okay? That gives you 80,500 for labor. All right, so you take those two numbers together, the 80,500 and 35, one more time. That gives you your total construction budget of 115,500. Now, you go back up here to basically your research on your price per square foot based on your zip code, and it's saying average is about 120 a foot, and if we're 1,000 square feet, it's $120,000 really rough estimation on construction budget. Well, we're underneath that at 115,500 based on the initial numbers, okay? So far we're still good to go on this project. Now you can say, all right, get this thing under contract, or if you haven't, I recommend actually getting it under contract before you get to this formula, because you already have a ballpark here and you have an initial spread you're looking at. Now you can run through your due diligence during the contract period, put these numbers together, come up with that number, and then you go ahead and call up the homies. So you call up your subs, you call up your trades, and you say, I'm working with this number on some level. Can you come take a look at this project? At some level, you may have some plans. You may have them just walk through the project with you. I recommend you do that. And you start talking about these numbers. So then you can kind of feel if you're anywhere close in here. Now, if you're one way or the other on this side, where if it comes in at like 150,000 and you're at 120, you might want to start researching things that may not make sense or things you may have missed, or this may be a project you say no go. The other way around, if you're way too low on this at 120, you may not have plugged enough in for this material list. The key here is to not cheat your budget once you get in past this formula. And what I mean by that is don't start fudging numbers. If you start getting over this number, or you're starting to tighten things down to make your ARV work, a common mistake is guys start shorting out all of the line items that they think they can make up for, quote unquote, to save money. That is death. You don't want to be in that situation where you can think you can fudge those numbers and play around with it enough to make these numbers fictitiously work. And then all of a sudden, this is your real number, and you were trying to get it down to like 90 to force this project. Guess what? You're going to be upside down and a lot of hurt. So make sure once you get in this realm, you walk through with your trades and subs, you make sure your numbers are pretty smooth, and then go ahead, and I always want to put a contingency in here too. So if I'm under at 115.5 and this is pretty dialed in, by the time I get through an actual budget, I'm going to go ahead and add another $5,000 to $7,000 anyway. Just get it up to this, because the research usually proves you're pretty close no matter what. So hopefully the law of 1/3 makes sense. This is a pretty key way to consistently get a rough estimation of total construction costs, where you can actually wrap your brain around, what those numbers really look like, and you're not just guessing, arbitrarily. So again, if you can figure out your sexy materials on some level, you just go ahead and double that. You're going to get a number here that you'll multiply by 2. It's a factor of 2 plus 15%. So 70 in this case times 1.15, it's 80,500. That's your labor. There's your formula. Add that number and that number together. That's your total construction cost. You're ready to go. Hopefully I haven't lost anybody here. Add your comments below, questions below. I'm more than happy to answer anything. I will add on in the description, I'll have a link for a spreadsheet that I like to use for budgets. Feel free to use that any way you want. All the formulas are plugged in already. It's ready to go. So that's free for you guys. As far as the rest of it goes, I think this will cover at least roughly construction costs. I'm going to start putting out more videos, starting with basically flipping a house 101, where I'll discuss more about the ARV and how to get to that number, how to do comparable market analysis, whatever. I'm kind of doing this backward just because everybody was really asking about how to figure out some construction costs. So we'll go backwards and kind of start fresh from the beginning and move forward back into this realm. I want to thank Lending Tips for letting me do this video. I appreciate all you guys, and make sure you can like and subscribe to the video. If you got any questions, again, leave those comments, hit me up on social media, email me, whatever you want to do, and then we'll go from there. I appreciate it, guys. That's it. That's all I got. Hopefully that makes sense. I didn't lose you. Later.